All right. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Red and Gold Standard podcast. Zach cannot be with us tonight, but in his stead, we are joined by the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Mike Andrews from Nothing But Niners. Mike, how you doing tonight, bud?
All is well, man. I'm ready to have a good time, ready to talk some 49ers football. I'm excited, man. I got to get a little lower. I like to try to match. Wait, how do I do this? How do I get. There we go. There we go. I like to match who I'm on the show with, man. I believe in matching that, so I'm with it, man. All right, I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to talk some Niners. The draft is coming up. You know, we got a lot of things to be excited about as Niner fans. John Lynch recently spoke to the media and all that. I'm sure we'll get into touching on some of that stuff too, man. And plus, there's more rumors, man. There's more people talking slick. I don't know if you've heard about it yet, but we'll get into all that stuff about who the starting quarterback is going to be for the San Francisco 49ers this year, man.
Yeah, and that's actually a good transition for us. So John Lynch came out this week, and it's interesting. You can tell a lot about how an organization feels about a player, not so much in what they say, but the attitude overall. It's what they don't say. It's what they say about others. And when John Lynch came out this week, one of the first things naturally that he was asked about was Trey Lance. And John kind of went over, that yes, a couple of teams had reached out, maybe just a quick little feeler out there to see if Trey Lance was available. And he had brought up the fact that, he had gone through the same thing last year with Mike McGlinchey. And he was asked what kind of transparency he'd had with Trey Lance about that whole situation. And he said that last year with Mike McGlinchey, he said, quote, "For instance, last year with Mike McGlinchey, it became apparent that a year away from that, it was going to be tough to re-sign him with Trent Williams in the building and the reality of our roster. I brought Mike McGlinchey up and said, hey, Mike, from being a player myself, I never want you to hear from anyone else that you're being shopped. So I'm telling you, we are going to talk to some teams." With Trey, he brings Trey in. He mentions that there's sensitivity with Trey's position being a quarterback. And, he said that Trey and him have talked and they're on the same page, and Trey knows exactly where the situation is. His mindset's about competing, and, he's excited about the position he's put himself in with the work he's done this offseason to get healthy and to improve. And he goes on, so on and so forth from there. And so, a lot of people are like, okay, cool. That's like, hey, they've talked about teams. He mentioned a smoke screen, like, oh, there's a lot of smoke. It's not like really teams are coming after him. But later on in the press conference, he was asked about two other players. He was asked about Brandon Ayuk, and he was asked about Nick Bosa. Now, in terms of what he said about Brandon Ayuk, when he was asked if teams had reached out potentially trading for Brandon Ayuk, he said, and I quote, "I'm not going to get into specifics on people. We love Brandon Ayuk, and I'm excited about Brandon being part of this team, so I'll just leave it at that." When asked about Nick Bosa, what would happen if teams had called about Nick Bosa, he said, and I quote, "Yeah, that hotline's closed. That never opened." This says a lot to me. Notice the words, hotline never open. I'm not going to speak on specifics. And this is minutes after he spoke very specifically about the Trey Lance situation. Lastly, and I'm going to ask your opinion on this as well, they asked if he looked into Baltimore Ravens quarterback Lamar Jackson. And that aside, I never thought that was realistic. But he said, and I quote, "You look into everything, and we seem to be linked to everything. I can tell you, I think it's how convicted we are on Brock on this current group of guys." So it's not what he says about Trey. It's what he says about the other guys that kind of lets you know. To me, this seems like the 49ers and really the rest of the league know that this is Brock Purdy's team and that Trey Lance is kind of on the outside looking in. Mike, what do you think about this whole thing? Is Trey Lance really on the outs with the 49ers?
All right. So what I believe and what I feel might be two different things. All right. So let me start by saying I've said on this very platform right here with RGS, right, that I believe the Niners are playing this perfect. You big up the guy who can't come to practice. You constantly put that guy on the podium because you have nothing to lose by saying, hey, well, we really, 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 really like Trey. I'm sorry, we really, really, really like Brock. Okay. The more you gas Brock, knowing he can't practice, knowing he can't participate, anyone who comes in is viewed as just a placeholder. And that is okay. That's exactly where the Niners want to be. Why? Because we don't know what Sam Darnold is in the system. We don't know what Trey Lance is in the system. We've seen glimpses of it, right? A total of what, 4 games, right? But it's not enough to be sold on. So you gas up the one guy you know can't compete. You mention his name. You try to make it seem like he's your starter. He's always going to be your starter. You try to make it appear that way without officially saying it, because then you let someone else down. Then you let him down if he doesn't get that job when he's healthy. Then you let down other people. So this is you start to play with people's psyche, right? They're doing this mental massaging of all 3 of their quarterbacks, and I think they're handling this phenomenally. All right. Now, when they asked about Lamar Jackson, I too was surprised, and I said, okay, it was a reality check for me. They like Purdy a little bit more than I thought they liked Purdy, okay? Because he said, we really like what we have here with Purdy and the other guys, or blah, 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 blah. But it was how quickly it came out. It was Purdy, boom, right? We really like what we have here with Purdy. And I was like, oh, okay. They like him more than what I thought they liked him. And that's cool. That is okay. Guys, I am completely okay with having 2 or 3 quarterbacks on the roster that you actually think you can win with. What team wouldn't want that? Let's think about that for a second. What team wouldn't want that? But when it comes to being on the outside looking in, I understand everything you said, right? They talked about the Trey Lance thing, and he tried to, tone it down a little bit. Well, no real offers, but some conversations, right? That's cool. Thanks, John. Right? He made it also clear during this presser, he's not on the trade block, but when my phone rings, I have to listen to what people are saying. Then he said the whole thing about Nick Bosa, which you touched on. That hotline was never open. Don't even play. Remember when he said he talked to Bill Belichick about 2017, 18-ish, and they were calling about Jimmy Garoppolo. He was like, well, since I got you on the phone, what about the other guy, Tom? Yeah, don't play those games. Right? Like he talked about that publicly. That's kind of what happens if Bosa's name were to get brought. Hey, untouchable. He is the only player on the 49ers entire roster that is untouchable. It's Nick Bosa. Okay? We have to accept that. We got to understand that. So that's why he shuts that down so quick. Don't even get any ideas. I don't even want rumors coming out, especially when we are in the middle of negotiating his contract. If I let the thought get out there that we don't want him here, that price just goes up way, way higher. Way higher. So John Lynch is politicking 101. I love everything that he was saying, everything that he was doing here. When it's all said and done, you asked me a direct question. Do I think Trey Lance on the outside looking in? I hope not. I don't think so, because they haven't said we have a starter. They haven't said that when Purdy is healthy, he is the guy. They have never said that.
Well, Lynch kind of said that, though. Lynch said if Purdy was healthy, you would presume that he would get the bulk of the snaps.
He would be the leader in the clubhouse.
Right, exactly. Okay, so he would be the leader in the clubhouse.
You play golf?
Of course. Now, somebody could come from behind for sure, but I feel like it's more likely in the NFL that somebody has to do something to lose the job rather than somebody doing, because we all have seen the game of this guy looks fantastic in preseason and then goes out and drops a big old egg in the regular season and looks like garbage. We've seen it time and time again. You're playing against second, third stringers. Basically, you're looking for, do they do what you want them to do well? And I don't think that you can glean a lot from that. Now, sometimes you can. Brock Purdy tore it up in preseason last year, and when he came into the games and played for real, he showed that same command of the offense. So there sometimes you can learn things from it, but against the competition that you're facing, you have to be very careful rolling one way or another. I think camp is more indicative of how they feel about certain players than preseason. I don't know. I feel that with how quickly Brock's name just rolls off of John Lynch's tongue, that, like you said, they like him a lot more than most people, I think, realize. And at some point or another, they're going to have to, either crap or get off the pot with Trey Lance. And this is one of those things where they got something they didn't expect. I think they're going to ride it. And the more I look at the Sam Darnold acquisition, the more I think that one of these guys is not going to be here. And that to me says Trey Lance. It'll be real interesting, because if they go after the kid from UCLA, Dorian, he has a double last name. Yep. Now, if they go after him in the draft, one of these guys definitely is not going to be here. Now, it could be Darnold, It very well could be Darnold that they brought him in. It wasn't a very, high value pick for Sam Darnold or whatever the trade was. But, it tells me a lot. I think that they're more on Brock than they expected to be. And that doesn't spell good news for Trey Lance.
But that's okay to be confident in two quarterbacks, right? And that's the true essence of competition. Let me tell you something. There's two things the Niners could do that would completely piss me off this offseason. There's two things. One, name a starter. That would be the big. I don't care if you think it's Trey. Don't name Trey the starter. Make it so that he knows I got to go out there and earn it. Same thing for Brock Purdy. You gotta fight through this rehab period. You got to come out here, and when you're able to throw, you got to be on your P's and Q's. Make whoever it is earn it. That's the one thing they can do is by naming the starter before preseason, before whatever. That's irresponsible for the 49ers. And there's no competitive advantage to doing that. So that's one thing. The other thing is trade a quarterback. I don't care which one, by the way. I don't care if they say, oh, Lance is really the guy. We tricked the whole league.
I stand corrected. We signed him as a free agent. We signed him as a free agent. That's my bad.
You talking about
Darnold?
Yeah, yep. With the free. Yeah, that's fine. But so
all the more reason that they can cut him easily.
Right. But I don't want to see you trade either one of these guys. I've made it clear I am #team Lance. I want to see what Lance can do with the likes of Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, all in the lineup with him at the same time. We haven't seen him with Kittle. We haven't seen him with Kittle plus Christian McCaffrey, plus the other guy. That combination does not exist on film. I think we deserve it as 49er fans. However, even if they traded Purdy, I would be upset. We were just a team that needed 5 quarterbacks to get through the season last year. We only had 4. Tell me it makes sense for them to try to trade one of them. Before you answer that, we were also the team that petitioned the NFL to bring back the 3rd quarterback rule in postseason games. But now we want to trade one of them? It makes just from a logical standpoint, that doesn't make any sense. So if you trade one of these guys, I'm going to be pissed. I don't care if it's Trey Lance. I don't care if it's Brock Purdy. I don't care if it's Sam Darnold. You have no business trading the commodity that you needed the most. You felt like your team was stacked enough that we had a puncher's chance in any matchup that we had all season. And then all of a sudden you try a guy out there, no offense, but Johnson was just no good. This is why you don't get rid of decent talent if you got it on the roster. Trey may not be the guy in their eyes. Purdy might not be the guy in their eyes, but they know that with both of those guys, they can win some games. We've seen that much play out so far. We have no business getting rid of either one of these guys this offseason. You do either one of those, and now you got an angry Mike, and my shows are going to be a lot different, a lot more disrespectful in the coming future. We're just not in a position to do that. This team doesn't have 4 starting quarterbacks ready to go. They don't. If they had 3, I would argue with you. Right now, we got 0, if we're being completely honest. You got one guy returning from an arm injury. You got another guy who we haven't seen play. He's played a total of 7 games in 3 years, something crazy like that, right? And then you got Sam Darnold, who's a reclamation project, who can be very good. Don't get me wrong. All 3 of these guys can be good in the system. We are not in a position to trade any of them, and that's despite drafting somebody. Even if you do draft somebody and you see what they got and you want to weigh your options later on, you still don't know Purdy's recovery. So none of it makes any sense right now to me. And just please, for the love of God, 49ers, do not trade any of your quarterbacks. I don't care what offer you get. It's not worth it. It's not worth
it. And I don't think that there's going to be any movement anytime soon. A trade, whether it be Trey Lance or Sam Darnold or whatever have you, is not going to happen until they're completely confident that Brock Purdy is going to be healthy one way or another. He's not going anywhere before the draft. I think that's been made abundantly clear. From what John Lynch is saying, I get more of the impression that, hey, we've talked to a couple teams and we're not completely against moving him, but it's going to take more than what teams have been, poking around with. And that will kind of shape up more towards the end of the draft. And after the draft, when teams have drafted their guys, whatever, however you have the quarterbacks ranked, and we can talk about that too. I still maintain that Will Levis is going to be the best quarterback out of this entire class. We can talk about that if you want, and I have a specific theory as to why, but we can get into that later. And CJ Stroud is going to be a bust, as will Anthony Richardson. But anyway, we'll get into that later. And Bryce Young is completely undraftable to me. So anyway, I think if Trey Lance was in this draft, he'd go second in the quarterback class. So
I think that's a fair assessment. I do. I really do.
Yeah.
I think that's a fair assessment.
I think that he has the raw talent to do it. But the picture will become clearer as we get into OTAs, as we start getting into training camp, as Brock Purdy hits that June 2nd, 12-week mark that Dr. Meester is saying is a very big inflection point for him to start throwing the ball. If he gets out there and he can just do even soft toss, if he's on track, and then you start seeing him moving and things get better and better as we get into July with training camp, the 49ers are going to have a pretty good idea of if Brock Purdy is going to be ready to go once the season starts, or if he's going to need a little more time. That's going to inform what they do with Trey Lance. Now, Leroy Phillips Sr. says if the Houston Texans don't draft a quarterback, look for them to go after Trey Lance. You know, I actually disagree with that. I actually think that D'Amico, the Texans and the Titans have seen Trey Lance, and if they haven't been banging down the 49ers door, knowing that the 49ers like Brock Purdy the way that they seemingly do, that tells me that they're not sold on Trey Lance. And so if they're not sold on him, why would anybody else be? So I think that Houston and Tennessee are the least likely place that he's going to go, just because they've seen him in person. They know his flaws. They know maybe there's upside there, but if they're not banging on the door already, then, you know, that I wonder if that says anything.
A lot of people say that there's 3 teams in that division that could want him, the Colts being the other one, right? And like you said, there's 2 people, be it front office or coaching staff, that are very familiar with Trey Lance. And for Lynch to say it's just been called, no offers, tells you what you need to know. That tells you what you need to know, right? If one of those teams were interested in him and they have that intimate knowledge that Matt was just talking about, and they still didn't make an offer, it's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. So I see what you're saying, and I agree with that sentiment. That's a good call.
Yeah, and let's not forget, and Zach makes a good point. It makes no sense for Houston to try to get Lance when they get a rookie with 5 years of controlled salary. This is Lance year 3.
Well, wait, it does make sense to try to get Lance because you still have 2 years where you control him and you know what he is. It does make sense to try to get him, in my opinion. But that's if you believe he's better than whoever you're going to get where they are in the draft. You know what I mean?
But here's why it doesn't make sense to me. The one thing that we know about Trey Lance is that he hasn't had an opportunity to really show what he could do. He hasn't had a lot of opportunity, whether it was in college, whether it was in the pros, and there's going to be a learning curve for him, right? The last thing that you want is for Trey Lance to go to your team. Let's say the Texans, right? Year 1, kind of rough. Year 2 shows a little bit of improvement. Then you pick up his 5th year, right? And then he pops. Now, all of a sudden, he becomes prohibitively expensive after year 3, rather than he pops year 3 and you got 2 more years to do something with. That's where I think that it could get a little dicey.
Can I just ask you 2 quick questions? They're going to be yes or no answers.
Sure.
Do you think we've seen Trey Lance's floor as a 49er and professional player?
His worst?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
No.
You don't think we've seen his worst, so you think that there's still more that could be bad for Trey Lance?
Yes.
Do you think we've seen his his median? Not a ceiling, his median.
Oh, his median. Like his middle of the road. I would say that that's more accurate, yes.
Okay. But you thought I was going to say ceiling, and that was also a no.
Right. So we haven't seen his floor. I think that he hasn't had. So for me, it's how much exposure he's getting, right? I need to see a full season's worth of passing before I can show you somebody's floor. And he just simply does not have the attempts.
Absolutely.
And same thing with ceiling. I need to see absolutely like a full season's worth of play for me to say, okay, this is where I think his ceiling can be. All we've seen are glimpses and little shades here, a little bit of good, a little bit of bad, and you know, we're kind of in the middle of the road. And that's why I think he does absolutely need, and I'm with you. I'm pro Lance. You know, Brock Purdy, breath of fresh air. I still am a little nervous about his size. I'm still a little bit nervous that he played over his skis a little bit in terms of his overall ability. I love the leadership, but do teams figure him out, you know, going down the road? I just think, you know, I don't know. It's hard to guess. Neither one of them have played an extensive amount of football in the NFL. So they're both kind of unknowns.
The cool thing about both of them being here in the system, and you can include Jimmy Garoppolo in this as well, Kyle Shanahan completely eliminates the floor for these players. A lot of people, and we're going to find out this season for sure, believe that Kyle Shanahan hid the deficiencies of Jimmy Garoppolo and hid the deficiencies for a Trey Lance and hid the deficiencies for a Brock Purdy. So the floor is something that I don't think we even have to worry about being shown for either any of these guys. And that includes Sam Darnold. That includes whoever the 49ers decide to try in and out, right? Nick Mullins, after his first start, 400 plus yards against the Raiders. Do you remember that game? And everyone's like, oh, we got a guy. He broke Brett Favre's record and became verified on Twitter during the game. Like that's how good he looked in this system. And then we've seen him go other places. I saw him when he was out here in Philly. Wasn't that good? I saw the preseason tapes. Wasn't that good, right? Kyle completely wipes that floor away.
Yeah, I was never on that train, though. Personally, I was never on that train. I didn't feel good about him from the beginning. I know a lot of fans did, but that wasn't me. Now, here's where I will push back a little bit on the Jimmy Garoppolo, Kyle hiding Jimmy Garoppolo's thing. The guy that wanted him was a guy that previously had him for years in New England, Josh McDaniel. And if anybody was going to know his flaws, it would be him too. And he was still like, let me get Derek Carr out of town because I know what I get with this guy. And so for me, I think that for whatever we hate on with Jimmy Garoppolo, you know, we both had our issues with him or whatever. My biggest issue with him was that he was always hurt. I could deal with some of the less than stellar deep throws. I could deal with some of the panic Jimmy throws or whatever, because the team won when he was in there. He was just gone way too much. So that was my main issue with him. And he was capped. He was definitely capped. But I think that his floor is, I don't think that Kyle was masking so much of his floor. I think that Kyle just pushed up his ceiling a little bit, if that makes sense.
That Vikings playoff game, the biggest game of his career at that point, Jimmy was trying to throw that ball to Kendricks, all game long. He finally got one of them, but they were like, yeah, enough of that. Enough of that, right? To me, that's Jimmy's floor. At that point in time, he was a 6-year veteran in the NFL, and he had plenty of playing experience. Well, I'm saying plenty. He probably had 2 full seasons of playing experience maybe at that time. No, not even 2 full seasons. But my point is, they put him in there, and that floor became exposed when you're going up against a really good defense that's going to play to your tendencies and what you've put on tape already. And Kyle still found a way to mask it. It's kind of my point. And that's why I said we're going to see this year. Now you're somewhere where they believe in you. They have former experience with you. And we're going to see if Kyle was holding you back or if Kyle was uplifting you. Because if Jimmy goes out there and throws for 45, 5,200 yards and 30 plus touchdowns, we're going to be like, oh man, maybe it was Kyle. Maybe Kyle was too much of a control freak, right? That the Jimmy Garoppolo conversations are far from over for 49ers content creators. It's far from over, because if he goes out there and he bombs, we're going to say, damn, Kyle's really good. Like, it's going to show a picture one way or the other. And right now, I'm willing to bet that Kyle was hiding the deficiencies and covering the floor, elevating the floor more than he was even getting the best out of those guys. So I think that if Kyle Shanahan can come in and elevate a floor, and your best may only be here, but if the floor on other teams is way down here, he's doing his job. And so that's why I can't wait to see how it's going to play out. I really can't.
No, I completely agree with you on that. That we're not done talking about Jimmy Garoppolo. One thing that you brought up though with Jimmy Garoppolo that kind of triggered something in me when we talk about, the 49ers liking one guy or another. I go back to this, and I said this before when it happened. It was very interesting to me the way that Kyle Shanahan game planned and played Trey Lance, right? Running him up the middle, limiting his throws. And when Brock Purdy got into the game, sling it 33 times, 34 times in that first game he played. And I don't think Brock attempted less than 25 passes. Maybe once or twice less than 25 passes in a game. I think the confidence in Brock Purdy from Kyle Shanahan's perspective is pretty clear. I want Trey Lance to get a legitimate shot. Don't play him like he's Lamar Jackson. He's not Lamar Jackson. He's athletic, but not like an athlete, if that makes sense, right? He's not
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson. He's
No.
not even Josh Allen, right? He's
No.
more like, and I'm not saying, in terms of passing ability or anything like that, but he's more athletic like Patrick Mahomes or an Aaron Rodgers in their ability to extend a play, and he shouldn't be looking to run it all. He should be looking to escape the pocket and look to throw the ball downfield. So running him between the tackles just doesn't make sense to me. And I want him to get a real shot to develop as a quarterback. I just don't know if, based on the history of what Kyle does, Kyle is pretty apparent, or I should say transparent, with how he feels about certain players. Jimmy Garoppolo, we're not going to let you throw in the playoffs because that's a disaster area, right? Trey Lance, I don't know if I'm going to let you throw right now, right? We'll give you 1 or 2 shots, but we don't know unless we're going to be down and we have no choice. Brock Purdy, go ahead and throw the ball because I know you're not going to turn it over. Like, I think there's some transparency there, and I just hope that Trey Lance really gets a shot here.
And that's exactly why I say I want to see him. Because when Brock Purdy came in, there was Christian McCaffrey, there was George Kittle, there was Brandon Ayuk, and there was Deebo Samuel. We've never seen that with Lance. And that's all. So when people say, oh, why do you want Lance so much? What has he done? He's done nothing. I just want to see Lance with those guys. And if I'm wrong, it's not even wrong. I want to see it. If he's bad, then we can bench him. Keep him on the roster and you can bench him. And people act like, oh, well, if you're going to bench him, you should have traded him. No, you shouldn't, because we've seen quarterbacks get hurt in the system. We need him. So that's where I am. I think we're on the same page. I really do.
Yeah, for sure. And so, some of the other stuff that Lynch went into really is just how they go about their process, things like that. I did want to get to this comment from Delvin Thomas. When Brock got hurt, was Jimmy cleared to come into the game, and his agent told him not to? He could have beat the Eagles. Jimmy was not active for that game. There was no chance he was going to come in and play. And so that's really a moot point. There's a lot of things that you could say about Jimmy, but like sandbagging when he's active for a game is not one that you can really say. Like, that dude tries to play through stuff. I'll give him that. He's just he gets hurt.
There was the one season where the playoffs were a far reach and he was out and he was on the scout team and throwing and all that. And they were like, yeah, no, we're just going to keep him on the sideline. But that was like 2020, if I'm not mistaken. And I think the playoffs were more than just a long shot. So they just felt like we're not going to risk.
Yeah, that was the year where he had that high ankle. And he does get weird with that, right? Where he's like, oh, dude, I think my calf exploded. And Kyle's like, I think it's really minor and he could probably play next week. So there is that disconnect. Right. That's really weird, but, it is what it is. Speaking of the quarterbacks, well, now we can kind of get into this since we're going to get into the draft. And this is not really 49ers related, but everybody loves talking about the quarterbacks. And there's a lot of speculation as to this year's group. I really have, I guess if you count Hendon Hooker, who's coming off a major injury, there's really like 5 guys if you count him, 4 if you don't. I'm interested to see what your takes. I have them. I think Will Levis is going to be the best of those. I think Stroud and Young are going to be like kind of right there next to each other, but one of those two is absolutely going to bomb. And I think it's probably Stroud. And then, Anthony Richardson, he's got a lot of the problems that other cannon-armed, inaccurate quarterbacks have. Is, can you teach them the accuracy? Are you relying on them just to be an athlete? And if you're relying on them just to be an athlete, it's the Lamar Jackson problem. You stop progressing as a passer and you rely on your physical tools until your body starts to break down. That's kind of where I stand. How do you rank these quarterbacks? And then I'll kind of defend my Will Levis position.
So the question is, how do you rank them versus how do you think their careers are going to start? Because those are 2 very different things.
Right. Those are 2 very different things. You can kind of like do an amalgamation of both and kind of just rank them that way.
Okay. So I think CJ Stroud will go to the Panthers. Let me be very clear. I think he's going to go to the Panthers. I think he's going to be the first overall pick in the draft, right? And I don't think his career is going to start as fast as a career of someone who has time to go in there and they're not thrown in right away. He is going to get drafted and he is going to play from day one. Where you have a guy like a Henderson Hooker who might go somewhere and sit for a little bit and then learn a system and then get on the field and be a little bit more confident in what the NFL is. Now, I also have an Ohio State bias. That's my college team. So I've been on the Justin Fields train. I wanted the Niners to draft him. I like CJ Stroud as well. But I think that when it's all said and done, of the guys in this draft that might have the best career, I think a guy like Henderson Hooker could be him. I'm not mad at your opinion on Will either, because it depends on where he goes, how long he sits, how long they allow him to prepare. He's got the cannon that everybody wants, right? He reminds me of a knockoff version of Josh Allen, right? Like that's just where I am. And I don't know if you guys remember, I was like really, really high on Josh Allen coming out. I was called crazy for it. First year, they were like, Mike, you're still wrong. And then all of a sudden, he flips the switch in year 3, and they're like, damn, Mike, you finally got it. Like that was it. But quarterbacks they don't bring productivity with them. It's also part of the system. It's also part of what's going. Like, we don't want Sam Darnold from the Jets. We just want the physical body, and let's apply it here now. And that's a huge part of analyzing these guys and how their careers are going to go. So I think that's what it falls into. I think Stroud, if I could build a quarterback, Stroud would be really close to what you would put together in a lab. But he's got to go to the right system. He's got to go to the right system. And that's kind of where I fall.
Okay. So, my thing is, you're a byproduct of where you come from and where you go, just like you said. And here's my thing. Bryce Young, to me, has always been undraftable. To me. Just because he's so small. I mean, he's smaller than Kyler Murray's small. Dude's going to play at 180 pounds, and you're not going to last. Sitting back there in the pocket, taking hits like that. You have to maneuver in the pocket. So everybody in the NFL is in the NFL for a reason. Correct? All right. You're at Alabama. You're playing with all NFL teams. Most of those players are going to make it to the NFL, but not everybody. But then your competition, who are you playing? Alcorn State, Appalachia, whatever, right? None of those guys are going to make it. So you have the luxury of having such a talented crew around you. Same thing with CJ Stroud, and my knock on CJ Stroud, and why I don't ever trust Ohio State quarterbacks. You got presumably a top 3 pick next year, Marvin Harrison Jr., sitting back there waiting to play. You've had Chris Olave. You've had all these guys, Jackson Smith and Jigba, like, who's widely regarded as even better than Chris Olave was. Mm-hmm. You got all these guys year in, year out. You have the top recruiting classes in the country, right? It's a reason why I hesitate on CJ Stroud as well, because there were moments where CJ Stroud looked like the moment was too big for him. Now, it's the exact same reason why I'm in on Will Levis. Will Levis had a really good junior year, 24 touchdowns, 13 picks, played for a Kentucky team Kentucky's been traditionally dog shit, right? Not very good. But his number 1 wide receiver went to the NFL. I think 3 or 4 of his offensive linemen were drafted. His senior season, a little bit of an injury, his numbers fall off. But he's still playing Power 5 football against Power 5 teams in the SEC. SEC starting quarterback, right? 2 years combined starts for the SEC. And he's not playing with the same talent. But you know what he is doing? Playing against elite level talent day in, day out, with nothing surrounding him. He's a bigger guy than Bryce Young is. He's about the same size as CJ Stroud, probably a little thicker, 6'3", 232, big arm. There is a little bit of concern, but not the accuracy concerns that you have with somebody like an Anthony Richardson, right? So maybe some 1 or 2
last year,
yeah, 65.4. I mean, and his 2 years as a starter, 65.4 last year. And like I said, the down year with some of his guys leaving, 66% the year before. So he's a guy that's going to, hit open guys at the very least. I look at it, you're coming from a Power 5 school, SEC, playing against top talent without that accessory talent to support you. And you're still putting up pretty good numbers. So to me, that kind of translates when you have that adversity. That's going to give you, he's throwing against tighter windows than a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud in a lot of ways.
My pro comp for Will would be Ben Roethlisberger, a little bit more athletic, like he and a bigger arm too. But I would say that would be my comp for him. Like, it's just, he's got the size, he's got the physique, and he's got the mentality. The one thing that gave me pause was just his 19 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. Like, you want to see a quarterback just be a little bit more dominant if you're going to invest a first round pick in him, right? I don't know what.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to guess, he'd probably be the 4th quarterback, maybe 5th quarterback taken in this draft. Now, where that falls in the draft, I don't know what round it's going to fall in. It's going to be well before the Niners 99, that's for sure.
My hot take is that the Panthers are going to take Will Levis, number 1.
Whoo! That would be that. Now that's a hot take for you right there.
Yeah,
that is a hot take right there.
I think that at number 1, Carolina is going to want to get this pick right, and they're going to be tempted to take Bryce Young, but I think the size is going to scare them off. They had Cam Newton there, and Cam Newton got injured, broken foot, concussions. They're going to play a different way, but this is you look at it and you're just like, man, can we really put this kid behind a absolutely terrible offensive line? I mean, Carolina has holes everywhere. They need a lot of work.
Yeah,
right.
So that eliminates the small guy for sure.
Right. So that eliminates the small guy. Now you have to look at CJ Stroud versus Will Levis, and you got to project which one fills that need or that kind of fits the bill a little better in a Frank Reich offense. Will Levis came from a pro system. He's calling pro plays, calling out his own protections. I don't know that CJ Stroud was doing that under Day at Ohio State.
Right.
So it's who's going to be ready to go day one. I think you're absolutely right that CJ Stroud is going to need a little bit of patience. I think that he is a guy that does have the tools if you were going to create a guy, but he also needs, I think he needs a lot more support. Will Levis has shown you, even with garbage around him, he's at least going to go out there and game, you know? And like I said, injury played a part in his downward tick in production. So if you get him there, he's healthy. He's a big kid. He's going to be able to sling it around the yard. I'm just saying. It's I know it's not likely, but that's my hot take is that he goes number one.
It's hard for me to ignore 72% completion percentage, 44 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. I mean, like that ratio is just absurd. Like it's just hard to ignore that and say we need a guy. Now it also depends, right? Do the Panthers want to be competitive year one, or is this a long haul thing? And I don't think you can go wrong with either one of them in the long haul, Levis or Stroud. But you got to have the patience and you got to build the team around them. Don't do like the Ravens with Lamar Jackson. Don't go and say we have such a dominant athlete at this position. We don't have to get him real good weapons. The only good weapon that the Ravens ever got for Lamar Jackson, in my opinion, was their tight end in Andrews, right? But the problem is that he wasn't even a late round pick. He was a mid-round pick. It's not like they believed in this guy and, oh, we're going to get you the best. No. And every wide receiver they go out and get for them in free agency in the Ravens is some washed up guy on his way out the league. Don't tell me you got him Deshaun Jackson. Like, what are you talking about? Like, don't tell me, you know what I mean? You trade away Brown. Like, they didn't do any favors to them. And as long as the Panthers don't take that mindset with either quarterback that they draft, I think they'll be okay.
See, man. So I get really bothered by that whole the Ravens didn't do Lamar Jackson any favors. They tailored that whole offense to him. That's why Mark Andrews is so good.
No.
Oh, they definitely did.
Hear me out. They tailored that offense to Greg Roman. They did not tailor that offense to – all right, hear me out. Watch this, right? The year that the Panthers went 15-1, they did not have a target for Cam Newton to throw the ball to outside of running back that was shorter than 6'3". It didn't exist. It was 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", tight ends. Like, everybody was tall. You know why? Because Cam Newton had accuracy issues. Cam Newton had this tendency to overthrow guys. So they went out and got guys like Devin Funchess. I mean, they just went out and got big-bodied targets for Cam Newton. You can't say the same for the Ravens. This is a Greg Roman offense. I want my quarterback to run and be mobile. I want my quarterback to hit the easy throws, and then we'll see what happens later on. He can improvise. That's a Greg Roman thing. And see, we're falling apart of, is it the system or is it the player? And unfortunately, we haven't seen them out away from each other, so we can't say which one it is. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just kind of where we end up getting stuck.
I mean, they did, as soon as they replaced Joe Flacco, they kind of retooled that entire offense for him before Greg Roman showed up. Here's my thing. At what point do you say, okay, Greg Roman, but it's the same situation we had with Colin Kaepernick? When is the player going to improve on his deficiencies, right? Colin Kaepernick, all we wanted him to do, get better at throwing the ball. What's he doing? He's doing sprints and lifting weights, which is not throwing the ball.
But they tried to make him a thrower, and who were his receivers? Michael Crabtree, Mario Manningham, and a washed-up
Holden. Anquan Bolden.
And Anquan Bolden was in his
Vernon
twilight
Davis.
years. He was still productive.
Vernon Davis.
Yeah.
Garrett
And those
Selleck was underrated as a secondary tight end. Dude, hold on.
Don't do that. Don't do that, Matt. Don't try to slide Garrett Selleck in there as a viable option for a quarterback.
Okay, fine. How about this? Delaney Walker before they sent him to Tennessee.
Yeah, but that was
Delaney Walker was good.
Him and Cat played together, what, 1 year? 2?
Probably the best season that he had.
And Delaney Walker was the H-back. He was a fullback. He was a tight end. They moved him all around. He was a lead blocker on run plays. Like, they moved him all over the place. But that goes to show Greg Roman's style. That's exactly what they're doing in Baltimore. Like, if you can identify your quarterback's deficiencies, mask it. If he constantly overthrows guys, get him people with a bigger catch radius.
I get that. I get that for a little bit, but at the same time, there has to be some. For example, as a medical professional, right? I got to do different things. I gotta insert IVs on people. If I'm dog shit at IVs, I can't just skate by on that forever. What do I got to do? I got to insert IVs. And then eventually what happens when you keep doing IVs? You get good at them. They need to be working on their deficiencies while maintaining their strengths.
But along the way,
I don't think that they do that.
Now watch this. Along the way, Matt, you've learned by doing IVs, sometimes you don't get it above the elbow or below the elbow. Sometimes you got to go to the back of the hand where the veins are a little bit more prominent.
Sure.
I have not seen Greg Roman adjust at all his entire time in the NFL as an offensive coordinator.
But again, at what point is Lamar Jackson working the offseason, do some stuff, do this, do that, come in and show the coaches can only coach you so much, right?
That's fair.
At the end of the day, when you're away from the team, like I said, same thing with Colin Kaepernick. We wanted him to get better at throwing the ball, and all we saw him in the offseason do was lift weights and sprint. Now and it's like, well, now you're just getting better at the things you're already good at. Like, you're good enough at those, get better at the stuff that you're not good at, and become more three-dimensional as a player so they can't box you in. And it's why come playoff time, Lamar Jackson is not successful, because as the teams get better, they can take away the stuff that Lamar does very well, and you're going to start to see Lamar struggle actually a little more, which is why not improving at the passing game is ultimately going to hurt him. He's becoming more injured. He's going to become less athletic as the years go on. Just talk to Michael Vick. Michael Vick is the poster child for what this is, right? And then look at the flip side, and it wasn't as long a period of time, but look at Philadelphia Eagles version of Randall Cunningham versus Minnesota Vikings version of Randall Cunningham. And Randall Cunningham actually became a better thrower of the football as his athleticism waned. And there was a year or two in Philadelphia where Michael Vick was like that too, before injuries kind of derailed him. He got better at throwing the football. And he says, absolutely, I should have put in the work early in my career to get better at throwing the football, because I rested on my laurels and relied entirely too much on my athleticism, and it ultimately cost me.
But as a quarterback, it's your job to provide your offense with 4,500 yards. If I can get 3,200 of them in the air and 1,300 on the ground, as Lamar Jackson, I'm doing my job, right? So as much as we want to try to hold him accountable for not perfecting his passing game, now's not the time to work on it, because the longer you stay in the pocket, the less time you add those rushing yards up, right? And so Greg Roman and teams with athletic quarterbacks know, hey, this is a facet that we can take advantage of. This is a part of the game that we can take advantage of. I do want to see these guys progress. There was a part of me that was hoping that maybe, just maybe, the Ravens didn't work something out. I want to see these guys in a different system, so I can say chicken or the egg. Who's making who?
Well, I mean, Roman's gone now, so if he goes back, then that would be,
right. So now we'll get to see something.
Right, and I don't think he's going to be the same, but maybe Odell Beckham Jr. is a little like toss,
again, another guy on the last leg.
I know, but at the same time, at some point or another, you have to see what he can be. And this is not me absolving Greg Roman, because I do think his offense is very tired, very limited, very by the book, structured in a way that doesn't allow for much, really showcasing of a quarterback's throwing ability. I'll put it that way. So At the same time, I just don't see the simple things, right? Making easy look easy. Lamar misses some throws that are gimmies and then makes some spectacular throws, which just makes it more maddening because the talent's there. It's just, you're not seeing it. Anyway, so I think we're both in agreement that at the very least, Stroud, Young, and Levis are the top three.
Yes, sir.
Because I haven't heard you talk about Anthony Richardson.
I can't get on board. I know that sounds crazy. And a lot of people have him ranked as a third guy coming from Florida and everything. And he's got the size, the 6'4", 244 and all that, right? Like he's got it all there. I maybe it's Tebow fatigue. I don't trust Florida quarterbacks. Is that bad?
No, because I don't trust CJ Stroud.
Right,
because he's an Ohio State quarterback.
Thing, right, yeah, exactly. So
right, I don't trust Bryce Young because he's an Alabama quarterback.
Right. So I'm right there with you. I mean, but this guy only completed 54% of his passes. Like I just don't trust him. 17 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Like, listen, there's gonna be a ranking for quarterbacks in every single draft. But if it's me, you, Zach, and Tony, and we're the only quarterbacks they can choose from, one of us is going to be ranked the top guy. That doesn't mean that we're good, though. You know what I'm saying? So I kind of feel like that's where he's falling in to this pack of mediocre quarterbacks entering this draft class. So, and that's why you make a statement like you made at the top of the show. Trey Lance would probably be the second best quarterback in this draft as a prospect.
Yeah,
and that's how.
Well, I think he would. I think he would be taken second. I think that obviously I'm taking a long shot on Will Levis being picked first, and in all likelihood, Bryce Young is going to be taken first. I think in this class, Trey Lance would be second. In this class, I think Will Levis is probably the only one that's going to have a modicum of success. I think the other three are just going to wash out. And the fact of the matter is, even if Will Levis is or if they have success, I don't think any of them are going to be that generational talent you're looking for. They'll all, they all have the potential to be good starters. The one with the highest ceiling is Anthony Richardson, but that floor is so low that it might just tank your franchise.
Yeah. I just don't see a world where 5'9", 5'10" quarterback is the first overall pick. I don't see it. I think that if
we've seen it twice, Baker Mayfield and Kyler Murray. I mean, that, and it hasn't worked out well, which is like, I think that's kind of damning for Bryce Young.
Baker Mayfield's only 5'10"?
Well, he's like 5'11", 6 foot, maybe. I don't know. Something like that. He's not big.
I get what you're saying, though. One of the shorter, stockier guys, right? Like, I get it. And it doesn't work out. And I think that's going to give the GMs a little bit of agita, like a little bit of hesitation. Like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I'd rather take this guy just because. So I don't know. Hopefully we're right. And,
Yeah, and he's so slight. That's the other problem that I have. It's not just that he's short; it's that he's short and thin, and that's never a good combination. I mean, he's probably gonna get bounced around in there. Now, moving on. I know this is not really that kind of podcast, but I've seen a couple of people ask, so we'll get into this very briefly. Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. What do you think of that whole thing?
So,
my point exactly. Everybody's saying, "Oh, the Jets are going to go to the Super Bowl." Cool, man. Aaron Rodgers better hope that we don't meet him across the other side. Otherwise, 49ers are getting their 6th because we own Aaron Rodgers' ass, and that ain't going to change. And they're the third best team in that division, by the way.
The Jets have, based off of betting odds, which let me be very clear. Betting odds, which means where you lay the money will sway the line. Based off of betting odds, the Jets have the 5th best odds to reach the Super Bowl. They're tied with the Dallas Cowboys. And I don't think anybody watching the show thinks the Cowboys are making it all the way to the Super Bowl. And so that just kind of tells you what it is. Do you know what team has the second best odds to make the Super Bowl this year right now?
The 49ers?
Second best. It's the freaking 49ers. And we don't even know who our quarterback is going to be.
Who's number one? The Chiefs?
Is it
Chiefs or the Eagles?
Chiefs are number one. Yeah. And the Chiefs are number one at plus 600. The 49ers are number 2 at plus 700. And then it goes down to 750 for the Bengals, if I'm not mistaken. And then there's that massive tie for the Eagles, Cowboys, and the Jets. Like, it's just it's terrible. It is absolutely terrible the way those odds are done right now. But they're like that for a reason. It's like that for a reason. And I'm just not. Listen, I like Robert Saleh. I want to see him be successful. I think Aaron Rodgers will win another 2 games based off of the mean, what they were going to do originally. But it's not it's not making me say, "Oh man, we got to really worry about them." And I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I want the Jets to make it. Remember when Rex Ryan had them in the AFC Championship with
Yep.
Mark Sanchez?
With Mark Sanchez, yeah.
What an
That
exciting
was
time
what is it?
for football.
Bart Scott can't wait.
Yeah,
Yep.
right. Like, come on, man. Like, what an exciting time for football. And so that would be cool, right? I think the NFL is a better place when teams like the Raiders, the Cowboys, the Niners, the Jets are good teams. You know what I'm saying? Like, those are the fun times.
That was back in the day when our boy Eric Crocker had a cup of tea with the Jets. That was those days. So shout out to Croc.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, listen. I think the Jets making it to a Super Bowl would surprise me. I think playoffs is not outside the realm of possibility. Marcellus Fulbright says the Jets will win that division if Rodgers isn't washed. I disagree. I think they're the third best team. The Bills are clearly the best team in that division. And I think Miami with a healthy Tua is number 2. They picked up Jalen Ramsey for like pocket change, like absolutely nothing. Just took him from the Rams. They forfeited a first-round pick, but they still have so many picks from other teams and other trades that they're going to be sitting pretty and able to stock the shelves. You still have Tyreek Hill. You still have Jalen Waddle. You got a lot of talent in that locker room. You're going to have year 2 under that McDaniel system, and it's just going to get better.
I completely agree with you, man. It's going to be hard for me to say that the Dolphins have leapfrogged the Dolphins right now. I mean, you know, when you make these predictions this early, you're assuming.
You mean the Bills?
No, not the Bills.
You mean the Jets haven't leapfrogged the Dolphins? Okay, I got you.
Right, yeah. And so I'm right there with you. I have them as the third best team. Now, the third best team can still win 10 plus games. Let me be very clear with what I'm saying. But I still have them as a third best team in that division right now.
Yeah, I just think the Dolphins are overall better. He says the Jets' best defense is the best in the division. That depends on how you break that down, honestly, because it's hard for, the Dolphins started out really hot. They had a pretty good defense. They were rolling with a high-powered offense. And the reason why the defense gave up a lot of points is when your offense scores in 3 plays, your defense on the field for more and more opportunities for another team. So I think it's just more than, when you say best defense, what are you saying? Yards? Are you saying points per game? There's a lot of metrics there. What's, third down percentage? How do you hold teams, down to distance percentages? There's a lot of factors. It's not real. I guess DVOA would be the best way to kind of break that down, but I wouldn't know how they stacked up.
I will say to Marcellus's point here, having Aaron Rodgers and sustain a couple of more drives. There were a lot of 3-and-outs with Zach Wilson. There were a lot of 3-and-outs with Mike White, right? Like, I think with Aaron Rodgers, just sustaining a couple of more drives, let that defense catch its breath a little bit more. I think you'll see an improvement in the defense, but it's time to see what they really are about. And Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded guy. I do think that defense is going to be formidable. I don't know that I'm ready to say that they have surpassed the defense of the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins' defense was pretty good too. And the Bills had a solid defense for years. Now, I know they've lost some pieces along the way, right? That's what happens when you start paying quarterbacks and paying wide receivers and things like that, right? You're going to lose some of those defensive pieces. I understand that. So I can't say that the Bills are still number 1, but they're going to be competitive. Those guys are going to compete. They're going to fight hard game in and game out. So we'll have to see how it plays out. And this is why NFL is king. This is exactly it's the parity, right? It's how quickly things can turn. You got your franchise quarterback, but you're going to lose your number 1 linebacker. You got your number 1 wide receiver with your number 1 quarterback, but you're going to lose your best pass rusher. Maybe now it's time to see what else you can do. So I kind of like it, man. I love the NFL. This is why it's so good to talk about.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of, we talked about the 49ers, number 2 odds to make it to the Super Bowl. They have 3 picks in the third round, 99, 101, 102. That's their first picks in the draft, but there's a lot of players in this draft. Maybe they move up for a guy. I know that, that was something else that Kyle mentioned. Somebody asked him, hey, like, how do you balance, having a lot of picks just so that you can kind of like play the odds a little better versus moving up for a guy you really like? And John said that, he said, quote, we've had drafts where we're incredibly active, and last year we didn't make one move, and that wasn't for lack of trying. We tried to move around. Nothing came to fruition. I think a lot of it, that's just sitting there, and it's kind of painful to do when you're sitting there just as it was last year. We picked at 61. It's a lot of sitting and waiting and seeing names go off that you really like. To me, with how active they've been prior to last year, this seems to me like the 49ers may make a move to move up the draft. They might see a guy, and I know that you're really big on Wanya Morris for the right tackle spot. We talked about that. That's fantastic. I like Sam Laporta as a tight end that they could potentially get late second, early third if they move up a little bit. I'm not saying they have to move up to the first round to go grab a guy. I know some guys in here think that they might actually, based off of what Lynch said about wide receiver Brandon Ayuk, that Brandon Ayuk actually might be on the move because he's talking them up like, hey, we don't really want to move him. And so that's like maybe a way to drive up price. Either way you look at it, what would be your ideal scenario for the 49ers? What would be a win for them? What would be a loss?
You know, to me, it comes down to positions, right? The Niners are going to pick their flavor in the individual, right? But I think if the Niners can come away with a guy like a Tucker Kraft, another tight end, okay, from South Dakota State. If they can come away with a guy like him, a guy like Wanye, an offensive tackle, and maybe an edge guy out of those 3 picks, if they were to stay pat or their first 3 picks, I think that everybody would be happy. You know, we've been looking for some help for George Kittle at the tight end position. The Niners have tried year in and year out to move on from Ross Dwelley, and they just can't do it. I mean, Ross Dwelley is the Dante Johnson of this offense. Like that's just what it is. He's not going anywhere. Someone's got to go out there and really, really beat him out. And he's making it hard for them. And rightfully so. Rightfully so. He's a guy with multifaceted. He can go in there and play fullback and go out there and play tight end. He's decent as a blocker. He's not the best, but, you know, we got to have a little bit more reliable hands, you know. And the Niners are looking for that. If they can go out there and secure, I think those will be the first 3 picks for the Niners. In what order, I don't know. But offensive linemen. And by the way, none of these guys that I'm naming do I expect to be starters. So let me be clear with what I'm saying. I don't care if it is a right tackle. I'm not expecting him to start. I don't care if it's a tight end. I'm not expecting him to line up opposite of George Kittle immediately out the gate. It's going to be really hard to take that job from Ross Dwelley. All right. And I don't care if it's an edge guy. It's going to be hard to beat out a guy like Drake Jackson, who's had a year in the system, who, by the way, had what, 3 sacks in 5 games or something like that. He had some crazy number where if you just projected that out over the course of the season, he'd be a double-digit sack guy, right? No one's coming in here and just taking a spot. I don't care if you name a safety. You're not just coming out here and beating out Hufanga. You're not coming in here and beating out what's my guy's name? Is it Burks? Not Burks. What's the other safety's name? He was a free agent last year. The old guy.
The old guy. Oh, Tashawn Gibson.
Gibson, that's his name. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're not just coming in here beating those guys out. I'm not expecting anyone that the Niners draft in their first 3 picks to be a starter. Sit down, learn, study, master your craft, and then come in and take the league by storm. That's what I'm hoping for. Depth and future. That's what I'm looking for here. This is a draft all about depth. You don't have a team that made it to the NFC Championship and say, hey, we got 9 holes to fill. It doesn't work like that. We don't have that many holes to fill. So that's what I'm looking for. That would be the best case scenario for me, is to go out there and get those 3 positions, offensive lineman, tight end. You can say safety if you want. I'm not going to say safety. I'm still going to say edge, because I think that we're looking for someone to just be a part of a really, really good rotation. And we go from there.
Okay. Now, do you think that they can move up in terms of like getting one of the top tackles in the draft? You know, even some, you know, a Darnell Wright from Tennessee, maybe, you know, an Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, somebody like that could be an impact player, because I know that you say a team that, you know, that made the NFC Championship game doesn't have a ton of holes, but I mean, we do kind of have to address the elephant in the room. And I know that you said that you're confident that Colt McKivitz is going to be the starting right tackle and they see something in him. But wouldn't you want to at least go after a guy that could potentially bump him off? Because we've all had, and I know that you are a big Mike McGlinchey defender, but a lot of us have had issue with Mike McGlinchey. And if McKivitz is not going to beat McGlinchey out, then how good actually is he? How do you sit with that?
So, Matt, this is the craziest thing. John Lynch in his presser talked about how he spoke to Mike McGlinchey. Hey, we're going to shop you this year. We know we're not going to be able to afford the contract you're going to get on the open market at the conclusion of the season, so we're going to shop you. people took that and they focused on Brandon Ayuk. They focused on Trey Lance. They focused on not George Kittle, Nick Bosa. But what that said to me was, if they were comfortable enough to move on from McGlinchey last year, that means that whoever was going to replace him in the season is still on this roster. Now, I don't know if that was McKivitz. I don't know if that was Spencer Burford. But there's somebody here that the 49ers were comfortable enough to even entertain the idea of Mike McGlinchey not finishing the season here. Now, unfortunately, Mike played the whole way through. So we don't know who his replacement was. But that answer, to me, is on this roster already. So anybody that we draft is just depth. Absolutely, we can trade up. Because if I tell you, before you even ask, that anybody we pick is going to be a depth piece, if someone starts to fall, the Niners are going to be like, oh, whoa. Hold on a second now, right? If Tyler Steen from Alabama somehow is sitting there around 68, 69, they're going to be like, hey, guys, wait, we got to do something. You know what I'm saying? We have to do something here. Anton Harrison from Oklahoma, right? If these guys are sitting there, these are guys that are projected to go anywhere from the first round to early third round. If these guys are there, the Niners are going to say, hey, let's move up and see what we can get. Absolutely. It is very, very possible that they decide to move up in this draft just to secure something. Now, I don't know if it's going to be a right tackle, again, because they were comfortable enough to entertain the idea of moving on from McGlinchey. So that means that there's an in-house answer. I don't know who that in-house answer is. Someone in the chat said Jalen Moore. Maybe it was him also.
Maybe. Here's my conspiracy theory. If it's Brock Purdy, maybe they go with his roommate, Nick Zakelj, who was a 5th-round selection last year, who also played tackle.
Right? You got to know these guys. And that's the thing.
Like you said, we don't draft rookies to see them start. Mm-hmm. Right? The 49ers do not draft rookies to see them start. Nick Zakelj did not really play a lot last year. Neither did Drake Jackson. He played a little more than the typical rookie, but that's why I think that a lot of, if we're counting on a guy, and I know a lot of people say we need an edge rusher, I think it's the opposite. I think Drake Jackson is going to make an impact next year. He's a second-round guy. He played more than the typical rookie, showed flashes, but's got to get a little bit better in his setting the edge against the rush for sure. But again, you want to see that progress, right? I expect Danny Gray to make more of an impact this year. I expect a lot of these guys essentially Kyle redshirts just about everybody, right?
But you're saying Danny Gray. I don't think Danny Gray's in play if Brock Purdy's the quarterback. If it's Sam Darnold,
I don't know, man. I don't know, because here's the thing. Brock Purdy, it's not going to be like you're not going to 7-step drop Brock Purdy and then have him throw to a Danny Gray, but on like one of those like 3 or 5-step drops where you're betting on Danny Gray to beat single coverage outside, I could see him being able to throw those, because we've seen that pass to Christian McCaffrey last year in the end zone down that left sideline was a dot.
Okay.
And he has a better looking deep ball than Jimmy Garoppolo ever had. I'll just put it to you that way. He's not going to throw 65-yard bombs, but there are plays that you could draw up that would draw somebody like a Deebo Samuel underneath, maybe Ayuk on an intermediate route, and you just throw Danny Gray out there, right? You run, maybe it's like rub coverage. They've done this before, where on the pass off, that's where people get confused. We see it every game. Somebody's just running wide open. Maybe you line up Danny Gray in the slot on the same side that you have a Deebo Samuel running a slant, and then you just have Danny Gray run like a kind of wheel route, and then the corners lose, they miscommunicate or whatever. If you get 2, 3, 4 of those a season, not even a game, a season, then Danny Gray becomes very valuable and opens things up for the dudes underneath, because all of a sudden Danny Gray might have 4 catches, but he also has 380 yards and 4 touchdowns too. Yeah. So that's where. Yeah. So I'm not saying, no, it's not going to be a, hey, shotgun, empty set, we're just going, 9 routes all the way across the board, and it's going to be Danny Gray because he's fast. I don't think that's going to be the case, but there are ways where you can utilize Danny Gray's speed without necessarily having to throw the ball 60 yards downfield.
What do we do well in the system? Slants, right? Yak. There's a reason that they have it. Get that ball in his hands early, running across the middle of the field, and let him shake and bake a couple of guys, right? There are other ways to use him. So you're absolutely
right.
Probably,
I mean, and you know the old hustle game, right? Where it's the the 3 cups with the ball, follow the ball. Now imagine speed with Danny Gray along with the Deebo Samuel and a Christian McCaffrey on the field at the same time, and you're running all of them in motion. All right, which way is it going to go?
On. Right, come on.
And Kyle's offense is all about creating confusion and matchup
Mhm.
nightmares and everything like that.
Yeah.
I think that Danny Gray could be valuable in that regard.
He has to show a value early in the season for that to take place. He has to.
He has to add something, and I think that's what Kyle looks from all of these guys, right? Drake Jackson, what does he do well? Rushes the quarterback, very athletic, right? We've seen him make plays where he stops on a dime and is able to contain a fast quarterback and not allow them to get outside and make a play or whatever, or something in the backfield where it's like a swing pass or something like that. What does he need to improve on? His defense against the run game, right? Just running backs and setting that edge and forcing the ball back inside to the teeth of the defense. Right. If he can pick that up, he's going to play. What did we see out of Brandon Ayuk that he needed to get better at? You know, he had the route running, he had the catching effort. Kyle wanted to see him commit more effort down in, down out when the ball wasn't going to him. What was he going to do? Is he going to take plays off or is he going to move? I think a lot of that is the same thing with Danny Gray. Yeah, sure, dude, you're really fast and you can run a fly route, but what do you need to get better at? You need to get better at your route tree. Yeah, can you get better at your route tree and make yourself a better fit for this offense? Have you improved from year 1 to year 2? What did we say about Banks? Banks has slow feet. What did he work on all offseason and improve? His feet. So I think Kyle sets forth a mission to all of these rookies. Hey, we're not going to play you because I don't like this. If you can improve this, you're going to play.
Then you'll get
those rookies take the red shirt year and work on all the deficiencies. And I think that's what Kyle does with that red shirt year. No, we're going to work on this year. This is what we want you to improve the most.
Is this the last episode before the draft for you guys?
It is for me. I'm working the next 3. So, and I think Zach's.
Do you have any draft crushes that you wanted to highlight before?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple.
So the reason I'm asking is because we don't know the order that the Niners are going to go in, and let's just assume they stay pat. A lot of people say, "What's the first one they take?" I'll be honest with you guys. We have 3 of 4 picks. It doesn't matter who they take first. It's going to be the lesser of the position available, right? If there's a run on tight ends, they might take the tight end first because there's 1 pick in between the other 2 that's coming in. You know what I'm saying? So they might go that way first. It's not really fair to try to put a position to it. But if you have like a top prospect or 3 top prospects, maybe there's a possibility that the Niners get them. So I was wondering if maybe you had 1, 2, or even 3 guys that you know what. I heard you talk about a tight end earlier. You know, maybe the guy from Georgia.
Well, I mentioned Sam Laporta, but you know, I'm a Michigan guy, so Luke Schoonmaker. If Laporta's not there. He's a tight end, 6'5", can you know, play in space, can get the ball, could probably shore up his blocking a little bit. Not going to be the most athletic guy, but if you're looking for a guy to supplement George Kittle, I think that's a guy that you would definitely want to take a look at in terms of just his overall ability. He played in the Big Ten. You know, he's one of those guys that's going to compete. Good highlight reel. Like I said, big, strong guy. And it's, you know, he reminds me of George Kittle in that I feel like he could have been utilized more. He had 35 catches last year, wasn't really utilized as much as he could have been. And I think some of that goes to the way that Jim Harbaugh is trying to change his offense a little bit, particularly with J.J. McCarthy at the quarterback. They relied so much on the running back. He's so good. And I'm blanking on his name.
You said Jim Harbaugh?
Yeah, at Michigan. The running back.
At Michigan. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm going to say.
Yeah. No. I think, I just think that he's a guy that would be like a tight end 2 with potential to be number 1. My biggest draft crush in this like process, and we're not going to get him obviously unless we move up. I really like Jack Campbell from Iowa. He's a linebacker. I really enjoy him. Physical player. Particularly with Azeez Al-Shire leaving. I know that we still have, you know, Flanagan Fowles and a couple of these other guys. But, I mean, Jack Campbell to me is just a guy he's gritty. Just a guy that's like, gonna go out there and hit somebody. He's big for a linebacker too. He's like 6'4". But he can still play the linebacker position. I don't think he's somebody you need to make like a 3-4 like linebacker, where like an end or whatever, like an end rusher or whatever. But yeah, I just, that's my other guy. Third guy, it's hard to say. It's one of these tackles, whether it's going to be like, I do like Wanye Morris. I do think that he's really good. There's wide receivers. There's Marvin Mims from Oklahoma, who I think could be in play. A Jaden Reed from Michigan State, who's another guy I think but it's just so hard once you get to 99, 101, 102. There's a lot of names that you're just like, dang, dude, like, it's, especially because we're not professionals. We all watch college football and we do what we can, but once you get into like the hundreds, the 150s, the 200s, it's really hard to be like, oh yeah, I can identify this is going to be a super good dude right here. I just know that I've seen players that kind of stand out to me, and those are the guys that I kind of gravitate towards. They tend to be, I watch a lot of Big Ten football, so it's going to be a lot of Big Ten guys. But they just need to find players that fit the system, and they have a couple of needs. I think another wide receiver would be helpful. I think that getting a linebacker would definitely be helpful. I think people are kind of sleeping on linebacker as a position of need.
And they shouldn't be, because we just lost Azeez Al-Shaair. Like a lot of people,
that's a big loss.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm with you 100% there. That's a good call.
I still maintain that the 49ers could use a real center, but the problem is this center draft is trash. Like, this center draft is really bad. Like, this is one of the worst interior offensive line drafts in recent memory. It's just not a lot of good people.
Honest, so. I will say this, as far as the centers go, interior linemen in general, guards also, unless you were like a transcendent one, you're not really getting picked before the third round anyway. So you can still get the second best guard late in the second. You know what I'm saying? Because the tackles are the ones that usually go early in the draft. So they're kind of like, guilty by association. It's
like, there are positions where you just don't draft very high. I think that's like running backs now, right? I know Bijan Robinson super high because he's super talented and versatile and whatever, but he probably shouldn't go, super high. But yeah, I'm looking at guys like Joe Tippmann from Wisconsin. It's like one of the only. Alex Forsyth from Oregon, I think, is another guy. There's a guy from Penn State named Juice Scruggs, and I don't think he's like the best player in the world, but just from like, God, who was it? Was it the Better Rivals podcast? Remember that show?
Yeah, hell yeah.
They had their name team. They had their name team or whatever. Juice Scruggs just sounds like a boss name to me, dude. So like, I don't know, I kind of like it, but so, those are a couple of guys at center that I could see, but it's hard. I don't think it's a very talented draft. This is a weak draft to me, in my opinion.
Okay, all right, that's fair. Absolutely.
Now I know Wanye Morris for you, but who else you got?
So you're going to kill me here. There's a running back that I really like. His name is Deuce Vaughn. All right.
Okay.
And
Deuce
Vaughn is, to me, he's from Kansas State. I heard you.
Okay. K-State.
But he's a small guy, 5'5", 175, 180-ish.
Wow. Okay.
Right. But this guy, he shakes and bakes. He's like Darren Sproles. He's that kind of guy with some return ability as well. And I think that if you can get a guy like that here to learn from Christian McCaffrey, I think we'd be in a phenomenal position. I really, really do. Like, the one
Thank you,
word
Tehran, by the way,
is elusive. He's elusive. Like, he's the guy that I would want. He doesn't have the fastest 40. He will get run down from behind, but man, will he make the first two people miss. You're not tackling this guy in open field if you're coming towards him. He's going to shake and bake you. He's super duper elusive. Arm tackles aren't going to get it done. You have to wrap this guy up. And I'm not opposed to the Niners getting the guy like that. I know people say, oh, you shouldn't draft running back. Kyle does well with guys undrafted. Yeah, that's cool and all, but no, I don't want to hear that. I don't. So Deuce Vaughn is one of them. You already talked about my tackle crush there in Wanye Morris. And then there's a couple of tight ends that I really, really, really like. But there is a guy who's going to be late in the draft. I'm talking like Mr. Irrelevant type late. Trey Knox. He's a wide receiver turned tight end. And if the Niners get him, I'm celebrating. Like, this is a guy that has the size, he has the grit, he's got the toughness to go out there and want to do it. And he's someone that to me needs to go to the right team with patience and can develop him. And I think the Niners are going to be that team for him. Trey Knox is a good guy who, I mean, he's from Arkansas. I don't know if Croc has any. I know that's where Croc lives now, so sometimes he pays attention to them, right? But he was a big receiver. He added weight and moved over to tight end. He is not a finished product. Let me be very, very clear what I'm saying. It's a work in progress.
Did he play tight end in college or?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
He did. He played tight end in college. Okay. So he's 6'5", 245. All right. Runs a 4.6. And he might, like I said, this is one of our last picks of the draft, like type of guys. But he is someone that I have a massive draft crush on. And so I really hope that the Niners go out and get him. He's not going to be one of the guys that we take with the first 3 picks. He's not going to be one of them.
SD says, I don't trust you, Mike. You banged the table for Jalen Hurd.
See, now that's not fair. I banged the table for talent. I banged the table for talent, not availability. And Jalen Hurd was absolutely one of the most talented wide receivers in that entire draft. 100%.
Yep. It's hard to come back from a back injury the way that, he had that back injury and the way that it just seemed to really paint everything that he was doing. And I think that maybe he had less than a stellar attitude about it too, which was unfortunate. Yeah. But I mean, you can't really predict that either.
And I feel like John Lynch kind of threw a shot at him in this last draft, by the way. I mean, in his last presser here. He was talking about some guys that kind of isolate themselves and they'll let you know, like, they're not going to make it. And everything I got from people in the building and all was, Mike, I know Jalen Hurd is your guy, but when we go into the cafeteria, he's sitting at the table by himself. He's not interacting with the wide receivers. He's not interacting with the linebackers or the tight ends or anybody. He's a loner in the locker room. He's got his headphones on and he's in a world by himself. And I wanted that to be wrong so bad. And it didn't work out. The talent, absolutely. And John Lynch said that. We don't have a problem evaluating talent. Now it's about the heart. It's about the mindset. That was a big part of what he was talking about when he was discussing what the draft scouts are looking at right now. So,
that seems to be a problem with everybody. I feel like, like if you're talented enough to be projected and slotted in these places for, the NFL, you've obviously got some level, it's the Ryan Leaf thing. It's the, the guy from the Raiders. God damn, the worst draft bust ever.
Oh, Jamarcus Russell.
Jamarcus Russell. Damn, dude, I must be I need to take some Alpha Brain or some shit, man. My memory's terrible. It's just a lot of names at this point. You going back through NFL history. You could even have a guy who's supremely talented who just loses the fire, like Andrew Luck, and retires after 6 years.
Right. Yeah.
Who had all the talent in the world, but was just like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. But if the Niners managed to get a guy like Tucker Kraft with one of their first 3 picks, I'd be happy. He's a top 5 tight end in this draft class, again, from South Dakota State. And this is a guy that, 65 receptions, 773 yards, and 4 touchdowns. And in his top year in college, that was in 2021. And that was with, the 15 games. He played 7 games in 2020. He played only 9 games in 2022. So he does have some injury issues. But that's why he's going to fall, because if he was healthy the whole time, he would be one of the top tight ends. So I'm hoping that the Niners can maybe even sneak a guy like Tucker Kraft.
Shout outs to Jim Everett, who comes in here and trolls us from his lofty 5-win Rams or whatever the fuck they were last year. I don't know who he's going to throw to because they don't have anybody left. But, I mean, Cooper Kupp's still there, but they don't have anybody else.
I listened to 3 different podcasts this week, Matt. And all of them were like, I'm mad at the Niners for not going harder after Matt Stafford. I can't believe they didn't do it. And I'm sitting here thinking, the Rams don't even know if Matt Stafford's going to play again. Why are you mad at that? I get it. They got the 1
Exactly.
year out of him, but look at what they gave up. Look at what they paid. And yes, they got a Super Bowl. That's fine. I do understand that. But was that the end goal? Just a 1 year rental? You gave up all that for 1 year? And I don't think that's what that's the trade off they expected.
As a fan, I would rather take the Patriots and Steelers model of things, where you have sustainable success rather than, give it all up for one thing, right?
Right.
And that's
Right.
what it is. And honestly, like, I have nothing against Matthew Stafford, but the dude's, I mean, he's like a walking arthritis at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, he has nothing else to prove, anything else like that. Zach did write in. Shout outs to Zach. Random thought. Imagine Lance getting traded to the New York Giants and letting Dable work with him. I think Lance can be successful with a lot of different systems. He just needs the opportunity to play. But again, and I forgot to bring this up to you, Mike. One of the other things that kind of indicated to me that the 49ers are kind of leaning away from Trey Lance is the way that John Lynch said, we're trying to do something special like now, like this year, when talking about Brandon Ayuk. But we all know, and it's the biggest knock that I still have on Trey Lance, and it's not really a knock because it's not his fault, but can you afford, with a Super Bowl roster, to sit there and let Lance have his growing pains when you have a steady hand with Brock Purdy, who at the very least might not have the ceiling that Trey Lance does, but probably won't have the floor that Trey Lance does either?
So, I mean, here's the thing. This is going to sound completely crazy. I watched games over and over and over last year. And this is going to sound like I'm a hater, and I'm not, but I didn't see much from Brock Purdy that Jimmy Garoppolo didn't give us last year. Last year. Let me be very clear what I'm saying. This was the best version of Jimmy Garoppolo we've ever seen. And when he went down, a lot of us were like, well, there goes the season. And Purdy came in and filled in beyond admirably, right? He came in and really, really filled the hole. And he showed a couple of things that Jimmy didn't. The Niners wanted to move on from Jimmy for a reason. And I just got to see why it was Trey Lance over Jimmy. They picked Trey Lance to supersede Jimmy Garoppolo. I have to see what it was. And I completely understand all the apprehension. I understand people saying, well, Mike, maybe last year was Brock Purdy's floor. And maybe he only improves from here on out. You could be 100% right. But here's what I do know. We got him for 3 more years, and we got Lance for at least 2 more. Give Lance a shot. And if he's not the
guy, and realistically 3 if you pick up his 5th-year option. So we realistically have 3 for both of them.
Right. So give Lance another shot. And it doesn't have to be for a full season. If you feel like the season's slipping away from you, then pull him and put the other guy in. I am completely okay with Lance not being the answer. But what I'm not okay with is the 49ers missing the opportunity to give Lance a shot with all these weapons, with all these guys, with this team that you've built. The offensive line is going to be worse this year. Do you agree with that or no? Just off the top, a new center, maybe a new right guard, and definitely a new right tackle. Do you agree that the 49ers offensive line is going to be worse this year?
I think it's going to be different.
Okay, different is fair. I will accept different.
I don't know if I can say worse, because I think that when you have Trent Williams on the side and Aaron Banks on the side, that alleviates a lot of things. But again, like I said, there were some pains inside too last season. Ooh. There were some pains with Mike McGlinchey last season.
For sure.
So it's going to be different. Now, it does have the potential to be worse. I will say that.
Right. It's a lot of unknowns. So it could be better, could be worse. It's definitely going to be different. I'll side with you there. Which quarterback are
now,
you
do we know that we're getting a different center, by the way? Because we re-signed Jake Brendel, didn't we?
We did re-sign him. We did.
We signed another guy that could potentially, from the Giants, I think, right? That we could have.
Feliciano,
that he plays guard and center.
Yes.
Right. So maybe they play him at guard. And then really you have 3 out of 5 offensive linemen returning. You have a new guy who's probably better than who we were playing at right guard last year, or right guard, right? Banks played left guard last year.
Burford,
right. Burford last year, or at least there's competition there. The real question mark for me is that right tackle. Right. We got to shore up the right tackle.
Now, Matt, I want you to really think clearly when I ask this question here. Who had better pocket presence and who navigated the pocket better, Purdy or Lance? Your opinion, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong or you're right. I have my answer. But who do you think navigated inside the pocket better? Small sample size, I know.
Just based off of last season, that's really hard because I mean, you had Lance basically played in a monsoon and then played like 6 plays against the Seattle Seahawks.
Okay.
I would say that I would say Brock Purdy because he has a bigger sample. But I think that they're closer than what people think. And I think that Lance definitely has the ability to maneuver in the pocket. It's just that he's not being asked to do that. And that's my biggest problem with how they play Trey Lance is they don't play him. If they played Brock Purdy the way they play Trey Lance, then it's a more fair comparison. But because it's comparing apples to oranges, it's really difficult for me to kind of go with that.
I will say this. Lance did not have the sample size. However, I saw him feeling pressure, and I thought he was going to get blindsided, and he moved. I feel like Lance's pocket presence is a little bit more natural than Brock's, where I saw Brock spin out to the left, turn his back to the offensive line, scramble around, and then try to.
Yeah, I don't like that. I don't like that.
And so my thing is, if you have questions on the offensive line, which quarterback like just what I want behind a questionable line. To me, right now, it's still Lance. Now, I'm open to being wrong about that. But my point is, there's reasons why you could go either way with this. And that's another reason why I think Trey Lance is actually the guy and not Brock Purdy. Leader of the clubhouse, cool. You finished first. You're ahead right now. But let's just see what happens when we get Lance in here for 6 more games. That's why.
I honestly, where I'm at is I honestly think this is all a moot point. Because of the inflammation in Brock Purdy's elbow to begin, I don't think he's even going to be ready for the beginning of the season, just based off of pure timeline. Because if June 2nd is the 3-month point, you're talking about 3 more months after that to kind of build up. And now you're looking at early September, and you're just going to throw him in with no game action, no preparation time, no nothing like that. I think that Lance is at least going to get the first start of the season. If I'm being realistic, I think Brock Purdy starts the season on the pup.
And that's exactly why, if you're the 49ers, you verbally back Brock Purdy as much as possible. Because he's not an option. Hey, Matt, you're my guy. You're my guy. You're my guy. I know you got a broken arm. I know your elbow's fucked up. You can't play right now, but you're going to be my guy on paper. You're the leader of the clubhouse. Hey, Lance, you're the projected backup. No expectations. Come in here and play some ball. Hey, Sam Darnold, you might beat out Lance. Come in here and play some ball until they have nothing to lose by backing Purdy publicly. And all it does is it elevates the play and the mindset of all the other guys. There's nothing to lose. You never said he's a starter, but he's the leader of the clubhouse. That was a quote.
Yeah. I don't know if you want to address this, Mike. This is for you, I think. You feel free, or we can just kick that off the screen. Don't matter.
With all due respect, what happened to Nothing But Niners? They are losing subscribers. Nothing But Niners did what most of the other content creators did this year, man. We just took it easy this year. We took it easy in the offseason. Trust me, we'll be back, man.
Yep.
Don't worry. And I will say
we all did it too, by the way. We all did it. We all
no, but I did it more. Sure. I made a conscious effort. I'm not gonna drown you guys with mock drafts. You know, when Nick was there, he did not mock drafts every other night. We probably had like 50 or 60 of them done in one offseason. I'm not doing that. That's me. If I don't have solid things to discuss with people, I'm not just gonna come on and sit in front of a camera because hey, it's the day that we do a show. I want to bring some solid stuff to you guys. Our Patreon content has not stopped. I bring it to you guys that way over there all the time. So if you're looking for some more Nothing But Niners content, some more thoughts from myself, from Tony, Eric Crocker, all of us have made appearances over there. Even Zach has been over there. We got to get Matt there. Matt's been playing with me, but our schedules are crazy, right? But we've been doing stuff over on Patreon, and I'm okay with that, right? I will say this, as far as followers go, out of nowhere in like December, maybe January, we boomed 700 subscribers. I had never seen anything like that before in 1 month. 700-800 subscribers just boomed. Since then, we've probably lost about 30, 40, maybe 50. And that's happening. But other than that, I don't have anything for you. If I'm plus 700, 800, minus 50.
That's still up.
That's still up, right? So I'm okay
That's
with
how we
that.
do in Vegas, baby.
Yeah, exactly. You got to know when to walk away, right? So it's all good, man. But guys, no, I appreciate you all for checking this out here. Thank you guys for watching Nothing But Niners. If you're watching on that channel, thank you guys for watching RGS. These guys over here really, really bring it to you. Matt and Zach do a phenomenal job, and the passion is always second to none. So these are very, very solid platforms. I'm hoping that you guys continue to rock out with us, and even on draft day. Draft day, we have a really, really good surprise for you guys. So make sure you guys are locked in and subscribe to all the channels. We're going to be doing. It's going to be fun. I don't want to ruin anything, but there's going to be a let's call it a round table for lack of better terms. There's going to be a really nice round table even on day one of the draft when we know the Niners aren't picking. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Make sure you guys are ready.
Cool. Getting us back on track. Jeffrey Edwards said he could be ready next week. Brock is not better than Trey. I think that's a little bit of an unfair assessment. How you define better? I think we need to see more from both of these gentlemen before we make a determination.
He's not more physically gifted than Trey, but the flip side to that is Jamarcus Russell is more physically gifted than Tom Brady. Who's the better quarterback?
Right.
So
I would say Brock Purdy is infinitely more polished than Trey Lance is at this point in their career.
Right, and that comes from experience. That comes from time under center and in-game experience and all that. Right. I have no problem saying that Brock Purdy is the better quarterback right now. And anyone who is pro Trey Lance should have no problem admitting that. However, you want to see the physical attributes. You want to see the potential. It's a dangerous word in the NFL, I understand. But you want to see the potential come to fruition. You want to see what it looks like in this system. And there's nothing wrong with that. Trey Lance is not the better quarterback today, right now. Even if Trey Lance started week one and threw for 400+ yards every game, 3 touchdowns plus every game, and no interceptions, you still can't say today in April that he's a better quarterback than Brock Purdy. You don't know what the final outcome is going to be. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's okay to be unsure about something. It's okay to not be definitive in what you're saying. I want Trey Lance to be the guy, but I'm okay either way. Here's what I do know. Kyle Shanahan wants to win more than any coach that I know.
Absolutely.
And he is going to put the guy that he sincerely thinks gives this team the best chance in the driver's seat. And so if it's Trey Lance, cool. If it's Brock Purdy, cool. If it's Sam Darnold, cool. I'm riding with whatever Kyle Shanahan says. And the excuses all go out the window. We'll see what happens.
Yep. My boy Dion always riding the Lance training, and we appreciate it. Thanks for coming in, Dion. And Jeffrey said everyone has their own opinion. Absolutely. That's all we're doing, man. We're not saying you're right. We're not saying you're wrong. We're saying we just don't know at this point in time. We need a little bit more.
Hashtag Team Trey, baby.
Yep.
That's me.
Oh, the truth says Brock coming off the season with no film on him. I mean, you had 4 years of college film. You can kind of determine what a player's tendencies are based off of that. But I feel it's not against NFL. We'll see what he does. You would think that in the playoffs, it would be a little bit tighter. But, I mean, he went out there and he lit the Seahawks up. So third most passing yards in a playoff game of 49ers history. I mean, a lot of good there. So we'll see. He's coming off an injury, so we don't know how he's even going to heal with that. And then Big Papa, you know how it is. Faithful to the name on the back of the jersey, on the front of the jersey. I'm faithful to the guys on the front of the jersey. I'm team 49ers. That's all that matters to me. Whatever's going to be the best for the team.
Matt, you ever hear the story Eric Crocker was telling? He was watching a prospect in college, and he was like, damn, who was this dumbass quarterback? And it turned out like it was one of the quarterbacks in our roster. You ever hear that story before?
No.
Oh, sugar honey. I'm gonna try to get him to tell this story on your show real quick, if you don't mind me trying to get him on real quick.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Let me see if I can call him just real quick to see if he answers. Let me see if he answers here. Hold on.
Yeah, not a problem.
This was a funny story, and this talks about film and all that.
Yeah.
Croc, you got like 20 seconds?
Yeah, I'm good.
We're live right now. Can you hear him over there, Matt?
Yeah, I can hear him.
All right. You told this story one time, how you were watching a prospect and you saw a quarterback making, like, why is he sitting down on the field? Like, what was he doing? It's a quarterback that's on the Niners roster right now. You know what story I'm talking about?
Wait, what?
You told this story on your show. You told this story on I'm talking about your personal show. You told it on Locked On 49ers. You were watching film on a different player. It wasn't the quarterback who was playing in college. And then the quarterback did something like really, really bad. You were like, who is this bum? And then it turns out it was a guy that's on the 49ers right now.
Oh, Brock Purdy. Okay, so I wasn't even watching. I wasn't watching film. I was watching a game. Like I was just watching the college game.
Oh, it was a game. My bad.
Yeah, so I'm just watching college football. You know, I watch a lot of college football. I just watch random games sometimes. And for no specific reason, I was watching Iowa State. And the quarterback, again, at this time, I don't know if it's Brock Purdy, but the quarterback he dropped back and he just hella bailed on the play, like just ran out of a clean pocket. I'm like, what the hell is this quarterback doing? And I tweeted that out. I actually have it. I'll try to find it and tag you in. And then, like, you know, obviously, like, it wasn't until Brock Purdy started taking off. Somebody must have liked that tweet. I have no idea how they found it. But it was Brock Purdy, and I had no idea until like damn near a year later.
What did he do on that play? Now, what happened? He bailed on a play. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he had like a clean pocket, and he just ran out of it. And I thought it was hella weird because it was like, like, bro, what are you doing? Like, why are you bailing on a play?
Right.
And he didn't even like make a play. I don't even think he made like a good throw or anything like that. But he just like randomly ran out. Like he panicked. Clearly, he panicked.
Right.
But it was like he ran out of a clean pocket, and I just thought it was hella weird.
There you go. See, that's
I'm gonna try to tag you. I'm gonna try to tag you in there if I can find it right now.
All right, man. Thanks for answering the call.
Thanks, Croc.
And thanks for breaking it down. We appreciate it, man.
All right, for sure.
All right. So, but that's kind of my point, right? The low lights don't define a player.
No, definitely not.
Eric Crocker posted on Twitter, like, who was this crazy quarterback that's doing this? Right. And Matt, when he sent it to me, I'll tag you in it also. And you can share it on the 49ers Hive page. Right. And it's like players should not be defined by one play. They shouldn't be defined by one game. Right. Their seasons, their lifetime to improve is exactly that. You have every opportunity to improve. We shouldn't hold any of these guys to a standard of what we saw in college, what we saw in their first pro game, or anything in between. Let's see what's said and done when the dust settles, when the smoke clears. Okay, we got to be patient, guys. I want it to be Trey Lance. I want it to be Brock Purdy. I want it to be a 49ers quarterback. I don't care which one it is. Doesn't mean that I can't want one guy over the other. I just want us to win. If Trey Lance never touches the field again and Brock Purdy goes on to win 2 or 3 Super Bowls, you know what I'm going to say? Bravo,
congratulations.
49ers. That's where I am. And there's nothing wrong with being that way. Sometimes we see some things and we say, man, that's not right. That's crazy. How could you go for a guy like that? And then we have to step back and think these draft prospects are not finished products. And that's all it comes down to. Trey Lance is not a finished product. Brock Purdy is not a finished product. And honestly, neither is Sam Darnold. Let's exercise a little bit of patience and let's see where we end up 5-10 years from now. That's it.
Absolutely. All right, super chat, and then we're gonna close the game out or the show out with one of our favorite games, yes or no. So we love doing that. Sean Shepard, thanks for the $5. Come on, Mike, why you lazy? Losing subscribers like the NFC Championship games. Rogers looks like Droopy the dog, and Green be blessed.
I'm sorry, man. I'm falling off, man. I'm losing followers. I will tell you guys this though. For those of you who are watching, we are doing our final mock draft. By the way, it'll only be the second one this season. We're doing our final mock draft tomorrow night. So make sure you guys are subscribed. You're locked in. You guys have everything. Your notifications turned on. Tony will be on. I will be on. We'll try to get Wayne Breezy on. And we're going to bring you guys our final draft of the 2023, I guess, preseason, technically, right? And we'll see how it goes. So that's where we are. I apologize about that, guys. If you guys want more mock drafts, let me know. I have no problem doing it. I have favorite prospects and all that stuff. Matt, here's the crazy thing, right? I have this big folder of all my favorite prospects. I had no problem showing guys, hey, you want to know who I like, let me know, and I'll do it on Patreon. I'll show highlight clips of these people. I'll talk about why I like them and all that. I got no responses. We have over 13. I'm sorry. Yeah, we have over 13,000 subscribers on our YouTube. And I ask you guys, what do you want to see? And no one gets back to me. Then it tells me you guys aren't really in it. So I let it go.
Exactly. Big Papa says, what do you mean, Mike? We're supposed to act like adults as fans?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you should. You should. We don't all do, but Ace Bro says I'll be there. All right, Mike, let's get into a little yes or no, and then we'll close this thing out. This is going to be pretty draft related. Just some stuff. We'll I'll ask the question. We'll do 3, 2, 1, and then thumbs up, thumbs down. Say why we think or why we don't think. Starting off, the San Francisco 49ers will move up in the draft. 3, 2, 1.
This doesn't mean third round, right? This just means in general.
In general, okay, I'm sorry. So I should rephrase that. The 49ers will pick higher than 99 in this draft. 3, 2, 1. Okay, go ahead, Mike.
That changed it up a little bit.
There we go. Yep.
It's not impossible. But let me start by saying you set a draft board, you place a value on players, and if there's nobody that's falling, there's no need to move up. If the draft goes the way you think it's going to go, then you don't have to move up because you have guys that are there. The only way you move up is if you had a higher valuation on a player that is falling and you say, you know what, this guy shouldn't still be there. We should go up and get him. I trust that the Niners are truly evaluating players the right way, so their board will be set accurately, so there's no need to move up. That's what I'll say.
Okay. I am going to say that they will move up, and here's where I kind of go with that. Like you said, they're going to value guys differently depending on the situation, what they value in terms of the position that they want. This is not a deep tackle draft. I really do think that they want to tackle, and I'm looking at the 49ers draft picks, and they have 11 picks. But they have 4 7s, they have 3 5s, they have 3 3s. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking there's going to be a guy that they like that either falls out of the first round or it's a guy they like high in the second that's kind of drifting back towards the end of the second round. And I think they package one of those 5s and one of those 7s to go up and get that player. I don't know who that player would be, but this team has shown time and time and time again, whether it be the trade back into the first round for Reuben Foster, the trade back into the first round to go get Brandon Ayuk. If they identify a guy that they like, they are not afraid to spend the capital to go pick that player. Here's another thing. The 49ers, we've seen they can make, superstars out of straw dust in terms of running backs, it seems like, with Joe Williams being the notable exception. Little inside info that will be kind of a later yes or no thing. Actually, we can just do it right now. The 49ers will trade a player during this draft. 3, 2, 1. Okay. You say no.
But I was undecided. It was just a countdown. Okay. It forced me to answer.
So okay. So we'll leave you at thumbs neutral. We'll give you another couple of seconds to think on that.
Okay. I think I'm ready.
All right. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think there's a possibility of a player being traded? Do you want me to say who I think is a prime target for trade first?
Yeah.
I think Elijah Mitchell is prime to be moved out. And I say that because with Christian McCaffrey being here, there's less of Elijah Mitchell played really well his first year. I think that Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey go fairly well together. But I think that Elijah Mitchell is not going to have a higher value than he does right now, right? He has good production, but he is coming off some injuries. But hey, came back from injuries, looked pretty good when he came back, whatever. I think the 49ers can move off of him if they identify a player, like I said, that they really like, and they could use that to kind of bolster up the package that they are, looking to move up with. So Elijah Mitchell, I mean, they make running backs look like they can just move them in, move them out. So
I'm gonna go with a safety. Believe it or not,
Okay.
I think Gibson could be traded, and I'm going to tell you why. He's a respected veteran around the NFL. All right, so there are a lot of people who knew what he was, and I know you guys are going to say, Mike, well, he didn't have much of a market when he was a free agent for a couple of weeks, right? And I get that, but if you look at the valuation on safeties, right, the top safety in this draft is projected as a solid first round pick. The second guy is as low as a third round. The second guy, and that's Jartavius Martin. He's projected as a second to third round guy. So the drop in value of safety goes from here to off the screen. So if Gibson is a guy that people think, man, we probably could have got something good for him, we'll give you something for him, and the Niners can then draft someone else. I think they end up doing something like that. I do.
And he's not untradeable. I mean, he's on a 1-year deal. I don't know what you would necessarily get for him.
You
But,
might not get much for him. Yeah. No, I think you might get a fifth or a sixth for him, but
right.
it's still
Exactly. It won't be a lot, but again, it's to supplement maybe trading up. Again, if you like one of those tackles and for whatever reason the tackle falls, or I mean, even somebody like, I mean, I don't think he'll get super far, but a guy as talented as Jalen Carter, who's shown that he has some off the field issues. And sometimes teams slide. I mean, players slide because teams look at that and go, I don't know if we want the headache. If a guy like him falls, or, just something to that extent. I'm not saying one way or another. All right. Zach put one in here. Yes or no, the 49ers would redo the trade for Trey Lance if they went back in time. 3, 2, 1. I don't think so. They were going to take a quarterback anyway. I think I'm going to start there. I don't think that they would redo it. It's hindsight is 2020, but again, what are you going to get? Like, which one of those quarterbacks is truly outstanding? The only one that's actually really, really good right now, and I know people still love Justin Fields, but I think that dude has a lot of work to do. He's got a lot of issues. But really, Trevor Lawrence, it was the surefire guy, and he went number 1. So what else are you going to do? They weren't going to take Zach Wilson, who looks like a complete bust. Mac Jones is exactly what Mac Jones we thought he was, a very limited and capped player at this point. Mm-hmm. Who else would you take? Because you still don't know what you have in Lance. Right. I think it's clear that Justin Fields does not fit a Kyle Shanahan offense. Regardless of what you think of him, he does not fit what Kyle Shanahan wants to do in an offense. Plain and simple. So the only option left is Trey Lance.
Yeah, the only reason I gave that a thumbs down is because they never traded up for Trey Lance. They traded up for the position, and then they evaluated the talent. So I don't think that would have changed. I think they wanted to say, hey, we're at 3. Let's find the guy we like. And I think the evaluation would have led them to right where they are if you could redo the draft. So I think they still trade up to 3, and I still think they end up drafting Trey Lance when it's all said and done. I'll stop there. Yeah, I'm going to stay there.
Perfect. I mean, and I think that's absolutely true too, because they traded up, and then after they traded up, they're like, oh, well, there's like 2 or 3 guys. We're comfortable with like 3 guys or whatever. They definitely said that. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's definitely one. And then Zach had another one that we'll get to. Yes or no, Trey Lance is worth more in a trade currently than Brock Purdy. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Why no?
Because this is a very simple answer. Brock Purdy has film in the NFL. I think that if you're going to sit here and say, hey, who are we more likely to win games with? It's going to be the guy that's played 8 games, won them all, and showed you something, versus a guy who has 4 sporadic starts, 2 injuries. Like, just there's not enough film. I think that if you're going to trade for a quarterback in the NFL, you want to know as much as possible about him, and there's just more film on Brock Purdy from college to the pros. There's just 12 times as much film on him than there is Trey Lance, and you just can't do it. You add up all the games that Brock Purdy has played, you add up all the games that Trey Lance has played, it's not even close. You have a better idea of who's who, and I think that's more important than just talent in the NFL. I do. That's why guys like Mac Jones go in the first round.
Yeah, that's true. I'm gonna cop out here. Trey Lance has more value than Brock Purdy because he's physically cleared and can pass a physical. So Brock Purdy can't be traded.
That's a good answer.
I'm kind of in on what you said, but I never underestimate the cachet that comes with being a first round pick. I think they get more opportunities than some others do. I mean, take a look at, Baker Mayfield, take a look at Sam Darnold, for instance. The only one that I thought really got, really kind of hammered out of the league early was Josh Rosen. But I mean, if he couldn't make it here, he wasn't going to make it. So it's unfortunate, but at the same time, these are first round guys that are on their third teams. I think even when the Jets are done with Zach Wilson, somebody's going to bring him in just to take a look, because there was something there at one point that multiple scouts saw that was like, oh, this guy is going to be a top 5 pick or a top 10 pick or whatever. And it's exactly what you talked about earlier. The talent is there. The talent is obviously there. And something else with Zach Wilson, it's just not going on upstairs. With Baker Mayfield, maybe it's, the same thing, not going on upstairs. Sam Darnold maybe was propped up. Who knows? Whatever the case may be, somebody takes a look at that and goes, the talent's there. Maybe I can fix this guy. Whereas with the Mr. Irrelevant, they're like, there's a reason why he was the last pick in the draft, and now he's coming off of injury. And maybe Kyle just got, the last squeeze of juice out of the orange, and all I'm left with now is the rind.
This guy
I'm not going to get anything from it.
He was passed up at least 7 times by each team in the NFL. Like that.
Exactly. Exactly. And the odds point to Purdy being closer to the multiple others that have not made it, as opposed to being closer to the Tom Brady that is the greatest of all time, despite being passed over. So that's where I would say that.
Very fair assessment. I like that.
Yeah. The 49ers will draft a quarterback in this draft. 3, 2, 1. Yeah. I think we both kind of are looking at DTR, Dorian Thompson Robinson, excuse me, as kind of their target, but it could be anybody else. I think they want to bolster the room.
I just think that after their success with Mr. Irrelevant, they don't see a reason to not draft a quarterback, even if he doesn't work out. Just let him go. You don't expect the Niners right now are sitting with 11 picks. You don't expect 11 picks to make this roster, not counting undrafted free agents. You got nothing to lose. Get a guy, take a flyer on him. If he doesn't work out, see you later, buddy. Like it's that simple.
And there's a lot of those guys that have, I mean, what was the thing with Brock Purdy? He started, he played well in big spots or whatever. And there are some guys like that. There's Stetson Bennett, there's Max Duggan, there's, a couple of these other guys that have played well that aren't highly touted, that you look at as being limited in one way or another. You bring those guys in, you make that quarterback room a little bit smarter, you make it a little more cerebral. You got guys who can compete, look things at different angles. And again, when you're looking at the fact that you have 4 7th-round picks, right? It's just like, all right, at some point you're just throwing the dart against the board and hoping to hit on something. So,
yeah.
All right. I have one more, and then do you have any?
I can come up with 2 real quick.
Okay, so I'll do my last one. The first pick that the 49ers, the first player the 49ers select will be on the offensive side of the ball. 3, 2, 1. Oh, interesting. All right, go for it, Mike.
I just think that John Lynch and this team have a thing, and this is so weird. We talked about this. If they stay pat, it's all the same. It just depends on what there's a run on, right? But they just have this affinity for defensive linemen. We do have not so much a hole, but a need at tackle at depth. We have a hole or a need at edge depth, and I just can't see them going somewhere other than defensive line with the top pick overall, especially if they're to run on those guys. Yeah.
Okay. I think the 49ers are going to go offense. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 3 out of their last 4 first overall selections have been defense. So you're talking about Nick Bosa, you're talking about Javon Kinlaw, and you're talking about last year with Drake Jackson, the exception being Trey Lance in 2021. Solomon Thomas the year before. Yeah, exactly. So you're getting to the point where they definitely go heavy on the defense early. I think that this is a year where the biggest area of need and the biggest area of concern for the 49ers is going to be that offensive line. I would be shocked if their first pick wasn't a tackle, if they can find one that they like, simply because they're going to have PTSD from going through 5 quarterbacks last season. And it's going to be, they haven't done everything that they need to do to address that position. They've done 1 or 2 things. I think they feel good about 1 or 2 positions, but I still think that they're going to throw a lot at it in this draft. And so for me, it would be them going offensive line number 1.
Yeah. All right. I got 2 for you really quick. We'll wrap this up. All right. The 49ers will draft a running back. Draft a running back in this draft class. 3, 2, 1. Okay. All right. I mean, I figured a lot of people were saying
it's pretty obvious. They do it just about every year.
Yeah.
I mean, every single year they seem to bring a guy in. Now, that doesn't mean that they're not going to look at guys in priority free agency, because they do that too. Undrafted free agents, they bring guys in,
right.
They identify guys. So I think it's pretty obvious that, again, you're looking at a position where you can never seem to have enough, right? Running back is such a physical position. We got a lot out of Christian McCaffrey last year. And again, you were shocked. He got 200 touches last year just with this team.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's one of those where it's like, how long is that sustainable? Right. And then Elijah Mitchell was injured last year. Do you want to go into it with a 3rd or a 4th or a 5th, injury riddled? We've seen it before, right? The year that Raheem Mostert went down, and then Matt Breida went down, and we're running Jeff Wilson Jr. I mean, we did that in 2021, Jeff Wilson Jr. show. We had cargo plane McKinnon, who's apparently back to being a jet plane with the Kansas City Chiefs. That son of a gun. But I mean, good on him. But dang, man, he kind of stole $24 million from us.
Got it and left, right?
Got it and left. That was he ran out of the building faster than he ever did on the field for us. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. All right. My last one is this one, right? There's 11 picks in this draft. The 49ers draft not 1, but 2 tight ends in this draft. 3, 2, 1. Ooh, okay. All right. Let me give my logic first really quick.
Okay.
And it's very simple. With 11 draft picks, you don't expect all 11 to get there. And I think that's a position that they've been working the hardest in free agency to try to get someone there. So I think they throw a couple of balls at the wall to see what sticks at that position.
Okay. I think that there's just too many areas of need. Like I said, I think linebacker is one that people are sleeping on. They seem to like to toss a lot at the defensive line. Corner, there's a lot of questions. They lost Emmanuel Mosley. You got good production out of some guys, but what are we really going to get out of Sam Womack year 2? What are we really going to get out of Thomas year 3? There are questions there. I know that Charvarius Ward is there, and he's pretty solidified. And Diamador Lenore had a little bit of a breakout at the end of the season. But corner's another position where I feel like there are 1 or 2 more bodies. I could see them going offense 2 times in a row. Like I said, offensive line first, and then maybe getting a guy like Schoonmaker with their second pick in the draft. And then maybe you target one of those tight ends that falls that you really like. The undrafted guys, the priority free agents, and you kind of find somebody there. They were able to bring back Ross Dwelley, not exactly super exciting, but like it is what it is. He knows the system. At the very least, if you identify a guy that's tight end 2, Ross Dwelley can be tight end 3. Are you really carrying 4 tight ends, right? Or 5 tight ends? No, not really. You're probably going to carry 3 at the most. So you kind of get somebody to come in and compete with Dwelley for that 3rd position. We still have the guy out of Stanford whose name I always forget. He's more of the blocker. But I mean, Croft is still out there as a guy. I think once you get past 2, you're kind of just looking to supplement the roster. So getting a pick on a tight end, which is a position you need relatively few of, is going to be a little more, more difficult.
No, that makes a lot of sense, especially because they don't have there's not a ton of value at the position,
Ace, bro, they ain't drafting an LB. I bet you they are. Aziz Al-Shire just walked out of that building.
They're definitely going to draft a linebacker.
They're definitely drafting a linebacker.
Yeah.
I would bet. I mean, listen, I'll just say it's a fairly safe bet they'll draft a linebacker.
Yeah, I don't think there's an option either. Like they kind of have to, if I'm being honest with you.
Right.
So the tight ends that they have on the team right now, the tight ends that they have right now are Warner, Kittle, Dwelly. That's it.
Oh, okay. So they did get rid of
I guess
Croft wasn't
is
very
gone.
good.
Well, that's based off of their app. There could be some other stuff there.
Well, and it's they're still out there in free agency, right? So the 49ers have a habit of like, okay, we're gonna go pick this guy up off the wire or whatever.
Yeah,
that can definitely go in there. So,
all right, man.
All right, that's perfect. Mike, let everybody know where you were at, man.
No, guys, you see the Twitter handle right there below. Make sure you guys get there. It's Mike Andrews 83. And if you guys are looking for some content, head on over to Nothing But Niners or NB9 ERS on YouTube. That's all I'm going to plug here. And make sure you guys are following my guys over here at 49ers Hive, man. Hard work, dedication, and passion, man. It doesn't get much better than that. So make sure you guys are here as well.
Yep. Slap that like button harder than you'd slap a Seahawks fan. We love having you here as always. Thank you, Mike. Thanks as always for joining us and holding down the fort. Zach, we miss you as always. Sad you couldn't be here, but glad you're living your life and doing your thing. We'll catch you guys next time. I want to say, as always, thank you for joining us. And until next time, go Niners.